am washed in baptism and looking forward to eternal life.
I'm saying no to my sin and fighting against it.
Taking up my cross every day.
And putting on the full armor of God.
I want change in my life.
But I can't get there alone.
I'm turning to Jesus for answers and hope.
I am an image bearer of God.
A child of the King.
I will impact my sphere of influence and this earth.
Taking sacrificial responsibility for those around me.
And using my gifts to point to God's glory.
I'm saying no to sin.
I'm saying no to death.
I'm saying yes to life.
Yes.
Yes, Jesus.
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 Yes, Jesus.
Yes.
Yes, Jesus.
Yes.
Yes, Jesus.
No sin. Yes, Jesus.
So today we are talking about change. And we're talking about it in the context of this choosing Jesus means saying no to sin, like he talked about last week. This week we're talking about this idea of saying yes to Jesus means saying yes to change and saying no to staying the same. And there are two types really of change that we encounter in our lives. We have the voluntary kind, the kind that we choose. Like if you want to lose weight, you choose that and you go about trying to do that. You want to quit smoking or quit drinking or quit whatever. You do that stuff consciously and you make that change yourself, right? You consciously and voluntarily make that change. Sometimes you choose to end a relationship or different things like that, choose a different job. All of these things happen and those are voluntary things. They're also the other kind, and it's the involuntary kind. And those changes you can really see when you're a kid, or if you have kids, you get to see the involuntary change. You get to see this little human being go from a newborn to a baby, to a toddler, to a child, to a middle schooler. No offense, middle schoolers, if you're sitting in here. I see a few of you in the back. No offense to you. To a high schooler, which is even worse. I don't have those. I only have a middle schooler and an elementary age, so I haven't experienced the high school. But I was a high schooler one time, and I know how I was. So my dad was in first service. I asked for forgiveness a lot. But those things are involuntary because like you watch this little baby turn from a baby to a child and you see all these changes that take place in their self. And sometimes we wish that we could slow those things down because, man, I remember bringing my oldest and my youngest home and being able to hold them in my arms and just like, does it get any better than this? And then they start crying and then they keep you up all night. And then all of a sudden you're like, please, can you get out of this? But you really want things to slow down. But the truth is they don't. They don't slow down because it's an involuntary change. It happens. It takes place, and there's nothing that we can do about it. There's none of that. But today we're going to talk about the voluntary kind of change. And this is where we find our faith journey, honestly, this voluntary kind, because the truth is, in order to make a change in your spiritual walk, in your time with Jesus, this faith journey that we call ourselves to be on, it takes a conscious decision to say, yes, I'm going to follow him, or no, I'm not going to. And so it doesn't matter whether you're 30 years into your walk with Jesus or you're still trying to figure that stuff out. Today we're going to talk about what it takes to change who we are in order to follow Jesus in a better way. And the truth is, change is very, very difficult. Most change is really difficult. I'd like to think that we kind of all agree on that thing. But the idea of like changing a habit or changing an attitude or a job or a city, there's always this challenge that comes along with change. And change is more difficult even when it's imposed on you, not voluntarily, but it's something that you just happen to be going through for whatever reason because life threw something at you and a change has taken place. right? That happens, and it's difficult. There's also changes like change in health or a change in relationships because of death or divorce. There's always this element of pain that comes along with change. Even when the change is good, like a new or better job requires change. It changes different aspects about it. It may require you leaving friends and the familiar behind, and that can cause a little difficulty. It's painful. And for that reason, most of us naturally want to avoid change. Right? I think we all would. Nobody really wants to go through this productive change because it's not fun most of the time. Even the good stuff is just not fun at times. And there's an uncertainty on the backside of change that you don't want to go through because you just don't know if it's going to end good or it's going to end badly. None of these things are known, and so it makes us hesitant to change. But today we're not going to talk about those kind of changes either. We're going to talk about the positive change, this change for Jesus. This challenge that we find ourselves in where there's this positive change where you're making the decision. And the last 3 weeks, we've had people make these positive changes for Jesus. They've decided, hey, listen, I want to make Jesus the Lord of my life. They don't know completely what they're in store for, but they just know that they love Jesus and they want to make this change in their life. And that's happened the last few weeks where we've done these baptisms. And there are challenges that come along with that kind of positive change. And if you've been a Christian for a long time in your life, you understand those challenges that come when you are trying to make Jesus the Lord of your life. It's a challenge. Fortunately for us, Scripture gives us these outlets or these examples that will allow us to see what positive changes look like, even in their difficulty. So in Genesis 12, 1 through 3, we have this guy Abraham, and it says this. It says, "Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all families of the earth shall be blessed." Now I want you to see here, there's some interesting things here. Some of the changes that Abraham has to make. He has to leave his country. He has to go live in this foreign land that he didn't know, and there's probably some pain and discomfort that goes with that, right? There probably is. The fear of moving and living in a different culture, maybe a different language, different traditions, that's all frightening. We just took a trip in July to Guatemala, and I don't know if you know this or not, but Guatemala is mainly a Spanish-speaking place. I encountered only my interpreter and one other person that knew any amount of English. And so one of the fears for me leaving on this, because I've done mission trips before, I've done lots of mission trips in my life, but all of them have been to English-speaking areas, and so there was always the comfort of going, well, at least I can talk to them. And in this case, that was a real fear of mine. It was like, all right, what are we going to do, and how are we going to communicate, and what's this going to be like, and what's the food like? Anybody else worry about food when you go to a foreign country? Like, I really worry about food. And turns out, I had good reason to worry about food. I'm not a huge Mexican food fan. I like it. I like what more we like to call American Mexican food. You know, you go to El Nepal or whatever. It's not real Mexican food. None of that's real Mexican food. So we're in Guatemala, and we're eating real, food. And if you don't know this, and just in case, because we're going to be taking lots of trips because we're partnering with them, and it's going to be an awesome experience for us, they eat refried beans every meal. Breakfast, refried beans with a little tortilla in it. Lunch, refried beans, little tortilla in it. Dinner, refried beans, little tortilla in it. And that was fine for a while. I mean, they're good. They're not like our refried beans. They were good, but man, I'm telling you, at the end of the week, it cost me. It cost me a whole lot. Probably 10 to 12 pounds somewhere in there. I was on a diet at that point in time anyway, so it was good. I kept my weight down while I was eating whatever I wanted to. It was great. But the truth is, like, that's scary stuff. Like, and I can imagine Abraham dealing through some of that stuff where he's like, I don't know what this is going to be. What if I don't like the food that they prepare? This is nervous stuff. So there's the fear there. There's a pain of leaving relatives behind, his home and his friends and all this stuff. There's this pain that comes along with that. But God tells him, listen, if you leave and you go to where I show you I want you to go, I'm going to bless you. And if you know the history of Abraham, he becomes the father of every nation. He has more descendants than he can count. And all of this is because he decided to change what God asked him to change about himself, and that was where he was living, and asked him to go. The second one is this guy named Zacchaeus in Luke 19. It says he entered Jericho, and this is talking about Jesus. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. And behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector and was rich. He was seeking to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd he could not, because he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said, Zacchaeus, hurry down, for I must stay at your house today. So he hurried and came down and received him joyfully. So he heard, and when he saw it, they grumbled. He is gone in to be a guest of a man who is a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. And Jesus said to him, Today salvation has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. Now, no doubt Zacchaeus was known in Jericho. Because here's the deal with Zacchaeus. He was a tax collector, and everybody knows the tax man, right? Everybody knows the tax man. Nobody wants to see the tax man. Nobody wants to pay the tax man, but everybody has to pay. And he was a tax collector for the Roman government. So he would go to his Jewish brothers and sisters and say, give me your taxes. It was $20 last time. Well, this time it's $60 because Zacchaeus wants to keep the $40 for himself, and he stores it away, and that's how he became rich. So he became rich off the backs of his own brothers and sisters and his own people. Like he got rich off of that, and so nobody liked him. You could imagine walking into a room where nobody likes you, and everybody's staring at you like, "What's this dude doing? We don't like him. We don't want him around." And so that's kind of what Zacchaeus was dealing with. Zacchaeus was also wanting to see who this Jesus guy was, because Jesus was coming through, and people had heard of him and wanted to see him and just wanted to be around him. And so Zacchaeus is just wanting to get a glimpse of him, not even talk to him, just get a glimpse of him and see who this Jesus character was. So he climbs up, because he's a little man. He climbs up, and Jesus comes down, says to him, he's like, "Listen, I'm going to come to your house today." All these people get mad because they know who he is. They know what he's done. Jesus doesn't take that into account. Jesus sees a person with a willingness to change. And so he looks at him, he says, I need to come to your house today. As the people get mad, Zacchaeus is spending this time with Jesus, and he says, "Listen, Lord, I'm going to give half my money to the poor. That's what I'm going to do." And Jesus is like, "Awesome." He probably is like, "Good on you, Zacchaeus." He says, "Also, here's what else I'm going to do. All the people that I've wronged," which is the entirety of Jericho. This tells you how rich this guy was. He was rich, like he was real rich, because he says, anybody who I've wronged, what am I going to do? What is he going to do? 4 times what he defrauded them, 4 times what he owed them. So if he took 40 and put it in his pocket, what is that, 160? I just did math real quick there. 160, I'm pretty good. Anyway, $160 he's given back to somebody, but he's doing that for every single person that he's wronged. And Jesus says, you get it. You understand. Like, there's a part of who you are that needs to change, and this is the part. No longer are you going to steal from people. No longer are you going to take advantage of your own people. No longer are you going to do this kind of stuff. I need you to be a changed man, Zacchaeus. And I guarantee you from that point on, he was an honest in his business undertakings. He didn't take advantage of people, and he changed. All because he encountered Jesus, and Jesus asked him to get out of a tree. Third example, Matthew 19:16-22, it says, "And behold, a man came up to him saying, 'Teacher, what good deed must I do to have eternal life?' And he said to him, 'Why do you ask me about what is good? There is only one who is good. If you would enter life, keep the commandments.' He said to him, 'Which ones?' And Jesus said, 'You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, honor your father and mother, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself.' The young man said to him, 'All of these I have kept. What do I still lack?' And Jesus said to him, 'If you would be perfect, go, sell all of your possession, give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. And come, follow me.' And when the young man heard this, he went away sorrowful because he had great possessions." Jesus encounters this rich young guy who thought he had it. He's like, I obey all the laws. Like, I do all of those things. I've memorized all that you need me to memorize. I haven't done anything wrong. And the change that Jesus asked him to make was a shift in even his core values, like the inner part of who he was. He said, "Listen, if you want to follow me, if you want to be perfect, if you want to see what this is all about, come and follow me." And that changed who he was because he had this security that came in knowing that he obeyed every law. Like there was a security in that. Like, listen, at least I haven't done wrong like Ken. Like, at least I haven't done that. I mean, Ken is terrible. He's a terrible dude. Like, he's done all kinds of stuff. I've obeyed everything. At least I'm not that bad. And there was security in there for him with that. There was this ongoing security that came with knowing that he couldn't do wrong because he knew the law and he obeyed the law. Then he also had the security because he had so many possessions. He was rich. He had all this stuff going on for himself, and there was security in that. There was this assurance that he could, like, I didn't have any needs. Whatever need I had was taken care of. Whatever, I could do this on my own. I don't need anybody else. Anybody there, like, do you like to be self-reliant? Like, Jesus is smacking this guy in the face with his self-reliance. Because he's saying, listen, if you want to be perfect, if you want to follow me, if you want to come after me, you got to give up all assurances and know that I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. That's me. And I'll take care of what you need. Come follow me and I will take care of all your needs. And this freaked him out because it wasn't like a physical pain that this guy was dealing with. It wasn't this, it was more psychological and even spiritual. It's this pain of knowing, like, all that I've done my entire life is wrong. Because Jesus is right here in front of me, asking me, taking me, like, listen, all you got to do is make this change. Get rid of your possessions and come and follow me. I think about this rich young ruler and I think about, like, he could be one that we talk about because Jesus gave him the same invitation that he gave to the disciples, to the apostles. James, John, Matthew, Peter, like he gave this call and said, come and follow me. And those dudes gave up their jobs. They gave up their families. They gave up, they did all this stuff on the spot. They gave it up to follow Jesus. And I think about this guy and think, man, what if he would have done that? Maybe we'd be reading the gospel of whoever the rich young, we'll call him James, John, Paul, I don't know, somebody. Ringo, there we go. The gospel of Ringo at this point. We could be reading that. But instead, this guy walks away with his tail tucked between his legs because he couldn't make the change. And we never hear from that guy again. So the challenge becomes, with all this discussion on change, with all this stuff going on with change, there is this idea that to say yes to Jesus means that you are going to say yes to change. Jesus doesn't leave people the same. He requires something from you to either say yes or no. What's he say about lukewarm? Anybody? He spits you out. Matter of fact, he says vomit. Ugh. Vomit you out. He wants a decision. And so because he wants a decision, he's saying like change, if you want to say yes to Jesus and you want to say yes to change, like you've got to be willing to do that. And so for us, here is the challenge. And I'm going to read it here because I feel like it needs to be read. Challenge is this: decide if our faith is going to be a part of our lives or if our faith will become our lives. And there's a difference there. When faith is a part of our lives, we control it. And we love to be in control. That's what we do. We love to control when we do things, how we do things, where we go, when we go, all of these things. We like to control it. But when faith is our life, it controls us. For example, when faith is part of our lives, when faith is just a part of our lives, we do just enough, right? You do just enough to not feel too guilty about yourself. You do just enough serving just to keep people off your back. You do just enough. You give just enough so that, you feel like you're doing your part. You do all this stuff just enough. And Jesus is saying, like, listen, when you encounter me, change is necessary. And I don't want you part-time. I don't want just a little bit of who you are. I need your entire being, because this faith thing is that important. This part of our faith where we're going to live it out is so important that I can't use part of you. At your job, I can't use part of you. In your home, I can't use part of you. With your friends, I can't use part of you. I need every ounce of who you are. And with this kind of change, with this kind of shift of part or all, there's pain connected. There's pain connected with this type of transformation. The pain that comes with removing yourself as the focus of every decision and making Christ the one that you live for in all of your decisions. There's also an inconvenience in making Jesus and his church a priority over your career, a priority over your recreation, and sometimes even a priority over your family. There is discomfort that comes with that. And I'm not saying that I'm not sitting up here and saying it's easy, because it is not. It is not easy to walk into your businesses and the places that you work and to say that you live for Christ no matter what. There just is. Or to have to say goodbye to family who you can't spend time with because they pull you down. And you know what I'm talking about. There's also an uneasiness when we feel when we unplug ourselves from the world around us and its cares in order to pursue the kingdom of God as our first priority in everything. And of course, there's also this embarrassment sometimes we feel when others mock us or even persecute us as weird or whatever, because we are now living our life fully for Jesus and what that looks like. It plays out. There are a few Christian celebrities in this world. Tim Tebow happens to be one of those. I can't stand where he went to school, but I can stand who he lives for. And that dude lives for Jesus no matter what. When he played football, when he played baseball, no matter what he was doing, he wore his faith on his sleeve, in his heart, and every ounce of his being was a follower of Jesus, every ounce of it. And because of that, people would make fun of him because he would kneel in the end zone and say a prayer to God. Like, people mock that. and people mock him in so many different ways. But that dude loves Jesus with all his heart. If you've never seen his Night to Shine stuff where he has given the entirety of his life to help kids with special needs, and it is a beautiful thing. And he does that not out of like celebrity or not because he wants all this shine on himself. He does it because he loves Jesus with all of his heart, and it makes all the difference in his world. People don't mind if religion is part of our lives like a hobby. Oh, you go to church, that's sweet. Me too. But man, they don't like it when it starts to get real and it starts to be fully enveloping in our lives. Why? Because it's inconvenient. It's embarrassing. It looks kind of weird when you're talking about Jesus and what he's done in your life and all the miracles that you find in your life that have taken place, all because of Jesus. And people are like, well, who's this weirdo? Like, But when we have people who fully live that out, and change is made, and we're living this life that is fully sold out to Jesus, it starts to look different in our jobs, in our homes, at our schools, with our friends, with the people around you who maybe you don't even like, but they see it different because you're different. And Jesus tells us, like, listen, in all of those differences, in all of those things that you want to live your faith out for me, when you want to live that out for me, there's a difference that takes place, and there's blessings that come with that. He tells us in Matthew 5:6, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. When you are hungering and thirsting for Jesus, the world seems a little dim. But man, Satan tries his best to keep us distracted with stuff and new and shiny and pretty and all that stuff. He tries to keep us distracted because that keeps our eyes off of Jesus, and that keeps us unmotivated to pursue Jesus with all that we have. But he tells us, like, listen, if you are pursuing me, you will be satisfied. You will be fully enveloped with my love and my joy and my kindness. Like, that's what you get. You will be blessed 100%, and you will be satisfied with me and not the other things. 2 Timothy 4:7-8 says, I've kept the faith. In the future there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness. Paul is this guy who lived his life fully for Jesus. It didn't matter what was going on, good, bad, indifferent, shipwreck, prison, all of these things he had going on in his life. It didn't matter. He lived his life fully. And he said, listen, for me to die is gain. I'd love to go and be with Jesus right now. That's what my heart longs for. But I got to live here and bring others along with you. Because he said, I know where my crown of righteousness is. I know I have a place secure for myself in heaven. I'm not there. I'm not there with Paul as far as for me to die is gain at this point. I have kids who I want to see grown up. I love my wife. I want to see my kids who grow up and have wives of their own and have children of their own. Like, I want to see that. I want to see them fall in love with Jesus for themselves. I want to change the legacy of my family because my family historically has not loved Jesus. My dad said yes 25, 30 years ago, and because of that, we started a new branch of our family tree that says, like, here's a group of people who love Jesus with all their heart, and this is what it looks like, and I want my children there. I'm secure. I know if I die tomorrow, I'm going to be with Jesus. I know that. I know it deep down in here. And that's what he says is a blessing. When you give your life fully to me, that is a blessing. That is one of the things that you get. In Acts 4:4, it says, but many of those who heard the message believed, and the number of men came to be 5,000. When an entire church is completely sold out to Jesus, the impact on the community is immeasurable. But it can't just be a few of us. Jesus calls us all to be fully on board. And when that happens, our community Mount Washington will be won for Jesus. Man, what a day that would be. To see the teachers come in and be able to say, I need to pray for you. People loving their community because that's what we're called to do. But it doesn't happen, I swear, it does not happen if this is just part of who you are. If this is just an event on a calendar, events can be canceled at any given time if something better comes along, right? We do that. It has to be part of your DNA. It has to be deep within your soul. And it's something that you take with you everywhere you go. So if you're a teacher and you find yourself being a teacher and you need to be a teacher who fully loves Jesus, and what that looks like, I don't know. A doctor, a nurse, a steel worker, all kinds of things. Fully engaged, part of your DNA, taking that with you, I promise you, it will make you look different to the people around you, and people will ask, and people will need an answer of why you are as weird as you are. So what's it look like to be fully involved? It looks different. We know what it looks like from the past. We can see Abraham changed, went about his business and changed. We see Zacchaeus was willing to change. We see the rich young man not willing to change. We know what that stuff looks like. In the same way, we can see it as a church, as a community, what it looks like if we start seeing some things, some evidence, because we will see it. There will be more people in small groups, worship services, all because doing so is a faith thing. The more small groups we have, the more people in service we have, that's people taking initiative on their faith. We'll be bringing more friends and neighbors because acting out our faith is part of who we are, not just a little bitty piece of it. It's in our DNA. Parents will make a point of having their kids at church or their youth events, the things that are going on that will help your kids' spiritual development, because investing in the future of their spiritual lives is of the utmost importance. The future generation sits here in these middle schoolers, elementary schoolers, and high schoolers. The future of the church is there, and if we are not doing our parts as parents and as mentors and as youth leaders and things like that, if we are not doing our part to impart the seriousness of their spiritual development, we're missing out. Offerings will continue to grow because that's part of a faith life. There will be more love among us, more joy among us on our faces, more willingness to sacrifice, more willingness to forgive, to let go of grudges and hurts. All of these things motivated by this faith that is deep-seated in our DNA, not just part of something that we do along the way. God will not only add more people to our number, but He will also shower us with blessings, these both physical and spiritual, as this community, as we make Him the priority, the first priority in our lives through faith. He even challenges us with this thing. In the book of Malachi, he says this. He says, "Test me in this, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open up for you the windows of heaven and pour out for you blessings until it overflows." He had been dealing with these people who were given second-rate sacrifices to Him. They were just like, I'm going to give you my sick calf because, my good one, he's still growing. I can get some good meat out of that. They were given this second-rate stuff because they didn't trust God to take care of them. And God said, listen, test me, and I will show you these blessings that pour out on you like you never even imagined. So I ask you this, what needs to change in our lives? What needs to change in us in order to make God a priority and not just a part of our life? Do you need to be baptized? Is that something in your spiritual journey that you have not done yet? Like, listen, if you need to make the Lord of your life, come talk to me after service. We will talk about it, and there's no reason not to. Do you need to start giving up something? Do you need to start giving, or maybe you start serving more, or make sure that you're here more often? Do you need prayer for your health, your marriage, or just your life in general to be a greater man and woman of faith? Maybe the change necessary is one that only God can see, you and God. It's between you and God. Abandoning some secret sin or some obsession or some addiction that you have. Perhaps it's giving up a grudge or a negative attitude towards someone that may have offended you at some point in the past and you just haven't been able to let it go. Maybe you need a greater faith to enable you to persevere at some times. Maybe work is tough, or school is tough, or home is tough, and you just need to pray for perseverance in that situation or relationship. There are moments in our life where change are necessary, when changes are due in our lives. And if you've been floating along in your life and in your faith life and your spiritual life, and you're tired of that, maybe today is the day to make a change. Maybe today is the day where you kind of say, enough is enough. I need to walk fully devoted to Jesus. If that's you, I pray that you do that. Outside to the left, there's a prayer ministry that is there after every service. If you need prayer for something, you need God to hold you up, and you need some people to come alongside you and hold you up at the same time, that's what our prayer team does. They love, and it will not just be a Sunday prayer. It will be an ongoing prayer until they hear whatever came of it. That's how dedicated they are to it. So if you need prayer, if you need to just cry on somebody's shoulder or just confess something to someone, please don't hesitate. That's what they're there for. Because it is time for us to experience real change. And it only comes through Jesus. It only comes through Jesus. Let's pray.